10. Wow.
I know, right?
10.
Yes.
Mama, we made it.
Yeah.
I never thought it'd last.
That was weird. Clint, you give your shot at the intro.
Hey, you guys.
That's a winner chicken dinner right there.
No, I like your intro.
Yeah.
Okay. Buenos noches.
Bienvenidos.
Bienvenidos y
Paramotos.
bienvenidos.
I don't know how to say any of that. I don't know how to say podcast or paramotor in Spanish.
This is episode number 10 of the Paramotor Podcast, and today we're talking about learning how to fly. So in the past, we've done a lot of episodes where we talk about specific things like wings. We've talked about motors. We've had some incredible guests on the show. But what is it that we're even talking about? So we want to kind of rewind the tapes and talk about how to get into this thing that we call paramotoring. Today, we have Leandra with us, and Leandra is some random girlfriend of mine.
Rewind. Let's try that one more time.
Leandra's my main squeeze.
Which squeeze is she?
She is a left squeeze.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, good thing you're not a right squeeze. Anywho's, first and foremost, I want to start out this episode thanking our new patrons who are supporting the show. Without you guys, we definitely couldn't do this. There's a ton of work that goes into the creation of this Paramotor podcast. So to all of you, thank you very much. Let it be known that coming soon, we've got a badass t-shirt. Can we agree?
Definitely. Available in sizes schmedium to extra schmedium.
And schmarge.
Schmarge for Marge. Large Marge. For that fat paramotor guy out there. You know, that guy actually, he just did a shout out today. I guess he released that video.
Yeah.
YouTube. He's fucking shaving and...
I think he was shit-talking beards, though. We'll let it slide.
beards are weird.
Beards. Oh, have you ever had a beard?
I can't grow a beard.
I was just going to say, can you grow a
I'm
beard?
only 17 or 14. No,
Yeah. Legally, we can't even employ Clint right now, but we pay him under
there
the
ain't no
table.
money here.
Other people who don't have beards would be Leandra. Why
No,
haven't
I
you
do
grown your
not.
beard yet?
She has a better chance at doing it
Yet,
than Clint
Yeah.
does.
Leandra may be considered a beard. For Anthony. Haven't you ever heard that term?
Oh, fudge.
Okay, guys, I don't know what you're talking
Where
about.
you going,
No, that's
Leandra?
a
Come back.
term. Like,
You
you know,
don't
like
Like to make
some
me more
people,
masculine.
some people have, you know,
Oh.
good-looking girlfriend to cover up whatever.
Kind of like little dudes driving a big truck like
exactly. Like that'd
Compensating?
be a guy's beard.
No, it's hiding. You know, you've heard this, right?
Yeah, I've heard
Tom.
it, but
Hiding.
You're going in a different direction than what I'm
Okay.
taking it in.
Beards are weird. Okay, back to the...
Back to the show. All right. So this episode has to do with learning how to fly. We all know that there are basically two different ways that you can learn how to fly. You can either have somebody teach you how to fly, or you can have YouTube teach you, or in essence,
Self-taught.
teach yourself. Exactly. And one of the individuals who is part of the podcast, who is still incarcerated at this moment, taught himself how to fly.
Now he's teaching how to protect his rear in the hokey or whatever.
He's watching his beard closely
Yeah.
now.
He's growing a beard. Look,
So is this going to be like an hour-long podcast on debating on whether or not to self-train or
Right off the bat, it's more responsible, obviously, to go ahead and get with somebody who knows what they're doing.
yeah. So speaking of Mitch, I mean, I've talked to him about how he trained, and he did say he kited and bought some gear. I think he bought it really a garage sale or had a good deal on this used gear for, you know, like $100 for everything, basically all this paraglide. I think he mentioned it actually on one of the earlier podcast episodes, so check it out. But he kited the hell out of that wing for months and months.
Right.
And then, you know, did some YouTube training and went from there. And look where it ended up for him.
Prison.
In
Prison.
prison.
Ass
Don't do it.
Mitch didn't even have any inclination in going to paramotoring. He was doing
Wanting to PG, right? Or
no.
what? Hang gliding.
Hang
He's
gliding. He was hang
yeah.
gliding, and he bought some equipment, and a guy kind of threw in
Oh,
that
that's
cheap
right, yeah.
paraglider, and he goes, "Oh, well, what the hell? I might as well." And he's got some crazy videos of him learning after he went through the period of time when he was doing all the ground handling and kiting. he had friends and a little mini bike and a long piece of rope, and he just started getting towed behind a mini bike.
I don't know if Mitchell is either the worst example of self-training or he's the best example at self-training, because the ways that the things that he comes up with, like being towed behind a mini bike, right? You clip into a rope that's attached to a little motorcycle and you're in a field and you tell your buddy to gas it and he just like sends you, I don't know, what, 500 feet up in the air?
No, it was high enough to really hurt yourself badly. But the thing is the bike and the rider was so light that they had a hard time steering the motorcycle because of the weight and the drag of Mitch. And
he was holding his beer too, so it was hard to do all that. Yeah, I would definitely say Mitchell is a good example of how you can be successful and being self-taught.
Yeah, but
I think it's.
But you don't hear the ones that are unsuccessful because they're fucking dead.
Consider this. Leandra.
Yep.
You just got back from training.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine teaching yourself to do what you just did?
Absolutely not.
No?
No.
Why?
I think, although it's not, one thing that I spoke to Ron, one of the trainers, was that although it's not mandated, I really believe that it's necessary, especially for someone who's just been around it. I mean, I feel like I've been around it well enough as far as time goes, just seeing you guys fly around. But there's absolutely no way I would ever put myself in that position without the training I went through, especially the simulator. I think that was one of the biggest benefits I saw.
Just, what do you mean by the simulator?
So the simulator, you want me to just tell you what it is?
Yeah, I don't even know.
Was there stirrups?
Like virtual reality, or was it just like sitting in
No,
there?
it's like the actual equipment.
Right.
So you're not attached to a glider or anything, but you still have the lines around. So it's very much like if you were in the actual paramotor or wearing it, and then you have the glider above you. But it's like a way to practice the throttle and practice the turns. And I feel like if I didn't have that to kind of really understand just how much is going on while you're flying or attempting to fly, then I wouldn't have really anticipated all of that. So it really helped me really understand just how much goes into it. Although it seems relatively simple, if it's brand new to you, it's a lot going on.
I can sympathize. Like, honestly, I can sympathize a lot with the individuals who like want to just self-train. A lot of it for me has to do with impatient. I'm kind of an impatient person by nature. And I waited a pretty long time, a few months at least, to get into training. And to me, there were so many moments where I was like, I'm just going to order the gear and I'll just take it really slow. And I remember thinking right after training, I was like, thank God I didn't do that on my own. Realistically, there may be a possibility of going and teaching yourself how to fly, but there's just such a huge chance that something could go wrong. Or I think as Leandra experienced and I experienced during my training, that you can find yourself up in the air, and then it's not until that specific moment, it's not until that very moment that you start to feel that anxiety like really set in for the first time. And for me, I think that training with a certified instructor or somebody who's at least very experienced, I think that's the biggest benefit of training, is that you can have somebody there to talk you through it when you're just overwhelmed. Tom, I know you definitely feel similar in a sense where you forget like everything you're supposed to do in a moment while you're up in the air.
Well, when you're first starting, and going back to Mitch real quick, you know, he's a pilot by profession. He's got a lot of airtime, and he's been through a lot of schooling on the aerodynamics and the physics of flying. And so he's on that end of the spectrum where he's very comfortable being off the ground. And you get someone like Leandra, who's probably never been off the ground except for in like a commercial airplane or something before.
Yeah, exactly.
And never by her own means. And now you're asking her, get yourself up there, fly around, and then land yourself. I mean, that's really foreign for a lot of people versus Mitch, who does it almost daily for his profession.
Yeah, speaking of that, I'm sorry to cut you off, but not really. Leandra, like what is the smallest form of aviation or aircraft that you've ever been in? I mean, have you ever done a tandem skydive or been in a Cessna or
no
commercial airline?
Yeah, just commercial airline.
Have you ever been flying a kite and it pulled you off the ground?
Never.
Have you ever had a butt fan strapped?
On your-
Have you ever had a car wreck and got ejected out of the car and took a little flight down the highway?
Nope, can't say I have.
That's like when you're first starting out and you've been given so much information and everything that you've been told is something you've never done before. It's something you've never experienced before. And then you get into the moment where you've got this loud motor and propeller on your back and you've got this wing over your head and you're running as fast as you can and someone's in your ear telling you something. And your brain just doesn't have the ability to go back on all that ground school that you've been taught over the last couple of days.
Right.
And you're basically reduced to just doing what you're told if, you're by radio comms for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
80% is out the window at that point.
And it's not like the entire time that you're just absolutely clueless. It's just this cluelessness hits you at the weirdest of times.
It just hits you at some point in time for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Like whether it's landing, kind of an important piece, or takeoff, right?
Yeah.
Because, for example, one of the things that is common in training is that it's like run. Do not sit down until you're, just run up into the sky.
Run into the sky.
Right. And then even once you're into the sky, you're like, okay, cool. I got my feet off the ground. I'm being picked up. And then all of a sudden you forget to continue to hold the throttle. And so now all of a sudden you're like on and off the throttle. So to have that instructor there to either remind you, keep running. Don't stop running until you're 100 feet up in the air, or hold the throttle, give it more throttle. There's all these little things that having that individual there is really beneficial.
It's information overload. I mean, you're
Oh my gosh.
holding risers, you're holding a throttle, you have a helmet on, you have a microphone, you have stuff on your ears,
and a big intimidating motor on your back. That's
my gosh.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we call it load shedding in the weather service, like when we're looking at radar and there's a bunch of storms and it can only process storms so fast. So what it does is it starts kind of minimizing what's not important. And you're only getting the important products.
Right.
So that's what's happening when you're first learning and you're maybe on your very first run off the ground. Your brain has lost its ability to process everything it needs and all that information being given. So it load sheds everything but the most important things, which is just keep running because that's what your body's doing. Yeah. That's all you can think of at that moment. And then when you're up in the air, all that stuff is gone now and you can relax, and then all that stuff starts coming to you, but you needed that when you were running off, and so it really isn't there at the right time.
There's definitely like points, not really specific to meteorology. However, like when those bumps come along, it's like you tell yourself in the beginning that there's going to be bumps. You hear it, it can get bumpy, it's nothing to worry about. But then you find yourself up there and you're hundreds of feet off the ground and you feel these bumps and it's kind of like, what the fuck am I doing up here? Like, seriously, I'm just so high up. And to me, and perhaps some of you feel that intimidation level. Clint, I don't know if you do because you're a skydiver.
You know what? I do more so on the paramotor, maybe because the flights are so long or, way longer, but coming from the skydiving world, my background is skydiving. I started skydiving in 1999. There's training. I mean, you're not going to just watch YouTube and go buy a parachute and get in a plane, and no one's going to. It just doesn't happen. So it's kind of surprising that you're able to do this hobby without any training whatsoever. But yeah, the bumps. I mean, you get bumped around under a parachute, but we're also a lot more loaded under a parachute, and maybe those bumps don't seem as bad. We're going faster. We're cutting through the turbulence more so than on a paragliding wing. And yeah, you get bumped around. It's unsettling. You've never felt those feelings before until you're up there. And like you said, a couple 100 feet and you're on your own. Yeah, you got a radio in your ear, but yeah, there's a lot going on.
Right.
And that's something I want to talk to about also is when you've never felt a bump in the air, you don't know what it's going to feel like when you do first feel that bump. And so I remember the first time I towed and I got halfway across the field, and I was probably 300 to 500 feet off the ground. I came across a little area where it was bumpy just for a minute, and I immediately tensed up. I flexed and everything, and I was like, what the hell was that? And then I just realized, damn, I'm going to be feeling that all the time, and I better get used to it.
Get used to it, yeah.
Yeah. And Leandra trained at the beach, which is generally a place where the air is more laminar However, on this day, there was like this, I don't know, a cloud layer or something like that. I think it kept some of the bumps in the air for whatever reason. Tom, I don't know if...
All right. Yeah, we'll go.
What really was happening, Tom?
Bumps.
Well, yeah, and it was bumpy.
Yeah.
I went up and flew before Leandra went and did her first flight, and I was like, oh shit. Like, we drove 3.5 hours away from the place that the training is usually conducted in Austin, Texas. We went all the way out to Galveston in search for better weather, and it was bumpy. It was gloomy. It was bumpy. And it wouldn't, really facilitate, that ideal first flight. So, Leandra, how many flights in total did you do that day?
Just the one.
And how many landings did you have?
Half of one, if you want to call that a landing.
It looked like 2.
2. Oh, because you bounced.
I bounced.
Well, I saw
Thanks,
3.
Tom.
I think it was like feet, knees, turtle.
Feet, knees, turtle. Feet, knees, choke. I'm choking.
I was
What was
literally
choking you?
choking. The lines were choking me. That's why I was fighting
But
them.
you saved your face.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
That's what
The money maker.
Moneymakers, all right, guys.
I would have ended this relationship so fast. Oh, good riddance.
Yeah. You're terrible.
Well,
Just kidding.
you really it's best if you don't have that turbulence on your first flight, but now
Oh,
you
yeah.
know what's up there. You know what to expect. And honestly, it's safer than it feels, especially when you're on a real safe A or B wing. You're not going to have a problem with it for the most part, as long as you're not flying in the middle of the day or get caught in a dust devil. And as long as you're with people that really know how to read the weather and know what your capabilities are, you'll make good decisions and you'll be fine. But it is unsettling the very first time you're up and you feel those. And I thought that bumps would be smooth. That's what I thought. I thought, oh yeah, if there's any turbulence, it'll just be this
Does
smooth.
that even make sense?
Well, I mean,
A smooth bump.
The fuck?
This guy. Where did you get this guy? You don't just Craigslist this shit for meteorologists, like local meteorology.
hey, wait.
All right.
When you hit a bump up there, it feels like you hit something solid sometimes.
Okay.
I mean, they're sharp. And it's like, I didn't know they'd feel so solid
So
and sharp.
Think back to the last commercial flight you were on. I mean, I flew a couple weeks ago, and there were times where the flight attendants couldn't even get up to do drink service because it was so turbulent.
I thought it's because they're going so fast.
Well, there was turbulence. It was bumpy. All right, and when you hit turbulence, it's not just a one bump. It's like a rumbling
Series. Yeah.
You're shaking you around and
Passing gas.
Think of that on a paraglider, and you don't have this seat belt and seat and big 250-pound dude next to you, and
And it's just you. And
No weight. There's nothing like the weight of an airplane.
Right.
With you. So yeah, it's much more impactful on you than it would be a large commercial airplane.
Right. Can you imagine, like, if there weren't bumps, would it change, like, the way people perceive self-training or just being self-taught? It's like, oh, you get up in the air and it's just
butter smooth.
And there's no fear because it's just totally glassed off all the time. That's not the reality of paramotoring. The reality is like, when you learn to fly, you start to fly in the most ideal conditions possible. And then you start to expand that window of opportunity to fly by flying a little bit later into the day or earlier in the evening. And for me, I know when I got done with training, I came back here and I was by myself. I think one of the greatest things after learning how to fly was finding other individuals to fly with. Tom and I went flying the other day, and it was really, really bumpy. It was more bumpy than I would have felt. I wouldn't have been comfortable flying by myself with that amount of turbulence.
Nor would I.
Right.
That makes us two fools.
Exactly. But just having that person side by side really instills a lot of confidence in you and allows you to start to build that trust in the wing or the equipment that you're flying. And so, yeah, once again, in that progression of learning, it's good to just always have somebody there with you. And then, there's an element of satisfaction in flying by yourself at times. But generally speaking, when learning to fly, it's best to fly with somebody else. Just as comfort.
I would agree to that because I've tried to make it so either you or Tom or one of the other pilots is flying that same time, at least to take off, because stuff can go wrong on takeoff that
Thank you, Clint.
we'll get into right now. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. Do you really want to be by yourself if something does go wrong? And you're in the middle of the field.
What are some of those things
bleeding to death
that could go wrong? Like, for example, I have experienced times when the kill switch wasn't working. And imagine yourself, if you're self-taught and you've got this propeller spinning on your back and you cannot turn off the motor, whether or not that other person can assist you, if something were to go wrong, it would behoove you to have another individual there for whatever assistance they can provide.
Like parts recovery.
Or like throw a rock at their head, knock them out, and just be like, I'm just going to get it over with.
Earlier you talked about confidence. And I think that's what you lack the most of when you need it the most is when you're first starting, when you're training. Because I bet when you got up in the air, Leandra, you probably looked around you and you go, man, I'm not sure if I can trust all this apparatus around me to keep me up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because you go, oh man, look at all these little tiny strings and this fabric and this motor that looks like someone just threw it together in a garage, even though it's really a nice motor. But you just go, man, I just can't believe that man does this.
Yeah.
And so initially you look at all that stuff and you say, how can it fail me, or how can it kill me, or how can it let me down? But then after you fly enough, you start realizing, God, this is super safe.
No, I would agree with what Tom said. I mean, just your confidence level in your equipment and yourself grows and grows, each flight you take. But, trusting in the gear is really important. I've found with skydiving too, the parachute wants to open. In paragliding, I would say the wing wants to fly. Would you agree to that?
Yeah,
and
that's
especially
right.
on like
I
the
keep hearing that. Yeah.
ENA, ENB wings. I mean, they're going to take, I think Anthony, you mentioned on one of the podcasts, like you got, collapse, but by the time you looked up, it was already back.
Right.
Because these wings, they want to fly. So I would say that's at least when you're self-teaching yourself, just keep saying that.
If you want to self-train, you can tell yourself all you want before you go flying that it's going to be A-okay. But ultimately, most people will experience a time where all of a sudden they're in the air, and just because of the environment that they're in, being so high off the ground and being by themselves, it just catches up to them and they're like, oh shit. And there's not much you can do. And that's where it's really beneficial to have either a trainer there or a buddy there or just somebody who's experienced in paramotoring.
Well, there's a term called scared out of the sport, right? A phrase, and that happens with a lot of different sports that have high risk involved with them. And I'll bet money that people that are self-trained are probably more likely to scare themselves out of the sport than someone that's been trained through a process that gets you from start to feeling proficient and confident. So, I mean, that's probably another good reason. It's like the last thing you want to do is spend money on all this kind of stuff and try to self-train yourself and then get yourself up in the sky and then scare yourself so bad that you just quit.
Right.
I would say I've known a couple guys that have self-trained coming from the skydiving world. I won't mention name. Gage Lawhorn in Las Cruces, New Mexico is one of them. But it kind of goes back to, same thing with gear and equipment for this. Do it right or do it twice. I mean, you're going to, if you do self-training, in some people's cases, they're going to screw up their gear and cause, $1,000+ in damage. Luckily didn't break anything of his body. He could have just put that money towards the training. So if it's a money thing, I mean, you just got to know you're probably going to screw something up because you didn't have the experience to do otherwise. So
on that note, I think it's interesting, right? Because we've spoken so much about this fear and shit that can go wrong during training or just trying to teach yourself how to fly. And it's kind of like, if so much of this is affiliated with these negative emotions or just fear in general, why do people do it? And realistically, the reason that paramotoring is so amazing, why people are probably listening to this podcast to begin with, is because we are infatuated with the idea of chasing this obsession of flight. And so it's kind of like one of those hang out, like I think you were saying, Tom, as far as scared out of the sport. if you can build up the experience to where all of a sudden you have that trust, then you do really get to reap the reward of being in the air and flying yourself around and doing something so phenomenal, like flying around on a kite with a freaking fan strapped to your butt. Like it's a great thing. Leandra, what did you think compared to after that first flight? Like how did your impression on paramotoring
like expectation
change?
Versus
Yeah,
reality?
Right, for sure.
Well, after my first failed attempt, I was mostly excited to be able to have lifted off the ground successfully, and that was a success in itself. But as I was climbing and going higher and higher, it's like a fine line. Like it's exhilarating, and then you, for a second, as you realize just how high you're going, you're like, holy crap, like I'm up here. And I put myself up here. What the was I thinking? And I think it's just, there's just so much, like you said, it's like sensory overload. It's just so much going on. Like one, I didn't ever do any towing or anything like that. So this is literally the first time I'm up there by myself. And so I think that was very foreign, just being that high up. The other thing that was very foreign was the area. We're right on the beach and I'm from the desert. And so it was just, I was definitely intimidated by the water. I didn't realize I was until I had to fly over it. And then it was very gloomy too. And like I said, I'm from the desert where it's nice and bright and shiny. And I think that also kind of like dampened my mood to an extent also. So I just think there was a lot of little things that had great impact.
So you only did that one flight, and
yeah,
for good reason. The weather wasn't great.
No,
and
I know that my next flight, like I know that I want it to be like perfect conditions for it, you know, because I don't want to get scared out of this sport. I really don't. And I think the testimony that I was able to hear from other, you know, flyers, for example, Ronnie, was mentioning to me that after the first couple of flights, he was just wondering, like, when the heck is this going to get fun?
Huge shout out to Ronnie
for
becoming a patron today. Thank you, Ronnie.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Thanks, Ronnie. You're my boy.
But yeah, so I think that I really identified with that because, I mean, I have one flight under my belt and wasn't the most perfect or most ideal first flight. And so I can't wait till I finally am at that point where I'm having fun doing it. Because as of right now, that first flight impression, I just know that I'm not going to put myself up there unless everything's just right.
What is it exactly that keeps you wanting to do it?
Oh, the good, like I said, that the fine line of exhilarating and fear. It's amazing.
You
up
just
there.
shot way past it.
No, but truthfully, like it's pretty incredible. Like I said, why did I put myself up there? But it's kind of cool knowing that I could put myself up there, you know?
Oh, you did. You put yourself up there.
Did, yeah.
So you flew.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
And what do you see as far as in the future goes? You've had that first taste of flight.
Yeah.
So now, like, moving forward, like, let's say hypothetically 20 flights from now, what do you see that flight looking like?
I feel like just it coming naturally, just more of an organic thing. I mean, granted, you have to pay attention to everything you're doing, but right now it's just like, okay, I got to do this and I can't do this and I got to do this. And I think it's just, before it comes naturally, you have to like just do it a couple of times. And so I think right now it's just, there's so much going on in my head and that's where I think the first couple of flights are going to be like.
Yeah.
And you hit on it. You said natural when it becomes natural, because what we're doing is so unnatural.
Oh my
we're not
gosh,
supposed to be flying like this, and we are. And so it is unnatural, and it's not comfortable. And like you said, it's so much to do right and so much to not do wrong.
Yeah.
And it's going to take more than 20 flights before you feel comfortable getting to that point. But you will get there for sure if you stay in.
I can't wait till I am. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my buddies one time said something like, once you have tasted flight,
that's not
you
your
will
buddy.
forever walk the earth with your eyes turned skyward. For there you have been, and there you will always long to return.
Yeah.
it just stuck with
You're
me.
buddies with Leonardo da Vinci?
He's my boy.
That's badass, dude.
Ronnie and Leo. Woo. No, I would say, going back to skydiving, I started skydiving in 99. Before I got in the sport, I was thinking about it daily. I don't think there's been a day that goes by that I haven't thought about skydiving, and I'm still in the sport. And then since starting paramotoring, there hasn't been a day that goes by that I don't think about paramotoring and like, when's my next flight? Checking the weather, this and that. But yeah, once you do it, most people are hooked. I mean, I've heard several people on Paramotor Facebook page, said, hey, I started doing this. I've got 50 flights. When am I ever going to start to enjoy it? And I'm pretty sure the sport is not for you.
Yeah. So you should have gotten there by then.
Yeah, when you're publicly asking that question, is somebody prodding you to do it? If you don't want to do it, don't do it.
Just don't do it.
So, when I first started doing this, my wife really showed no interest, and she still really doesn't. She says it looks too complicated. And I think I kind of skewed her against it too when I was learning, because I'm like you, Anthony. I'm real impatient, and I always feel like I'm going to be the best at anything I try, whether it's reality or not. And so when the conditions wouldn't be right and I couldn't fly, or I'd fly and I'd have a bad landing, or I'd get scared, or I'd break something, I'd come home so freaking mad. And I would be throwing stuff around and cursing, and my wife would say, why in the hell are you doing that if it
Beating
makes
your
you
dog
so
and
mad?
shit.
But yeah, you'll get past it. But like Clint was just saying, if you can't stop thinking about it, it's kind of in you, and it's something you just got to keep doing. And that's kind of part of what makes you happy in life, I guess, I wake up almost every single morning looking at weather to see if it's a flying morning. So I want to know, how much have you ground handled, kited, and all that kind of stuff? I mean, do you have a good feel for the wing and how it works on the ground?
Yes. So I think after the last couple of days, this last week, I definitely feel a lot more comfortable kiting. You've seen me out there kiting before, or attempting to. But I don't know what it was about being out there. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, maybe the wind was different. I don't know. Maybe you can attest to that.
Well,
maybe.
yeah, the beach is definitely easier to kite on.
Even in Kyle.
Yeah, in Kyle, for sure. I mean, we're in El Paso. And so generally, I think the days that we kited when Tom was there helping you out and you were out there, the park that we fly from is not an ideal park to actually launch from. So when you get done with training, right, we're not going to go out and fly with you at the park right here. We plan on going to the sod farms and giving you the best conditions that El Paso has. A nice wide open space where it's not so much that you're going to run into something. It's more of less distractions for you.
Yeah.
So to be able to have a big wide open space with grass, that at any moment, if you wanted to come down, it's just hey, I can come down it. And you probably wouldn't, but having that option frees up your mind to allow you to focus on what it is that you're doing, which is flying.
Hey, can you ask a girl if they had to take a nervous dump?
Yeah, of course.
Girls don't poop.
Yeah.
Tom, who lied to you?
I
Girls
you
don't
swear to
poop.
God.
Ruining this for me.
I'm trying to get Leandra to fart in front of me so
They
that
do
I
that
can
too.
fart. Until she farts, I can't fart.
Dutch oven him. Okay, so what happened on the first flight? Because
Our first attempt.
First
Take
attempt.
us there. Take
First-
us there.
yeah,
Yeah. So it's actually the only night that we actually saw sunset. So it's you'd think it'd be perfect because I'm slightly obsessed with sunsets. And so I was about to run into the sunset, and, I start hauling ass. I'm running and I'm going full throttle, and I feel the motor lifting off my back a little bit. And I was okay, I'm about to go in the air. This is when it happens. And then I sat down, and
This is it. I'm almost there.
Almost ain't good enough.
anticlimactic.
Let down.
So did something quit spinning?
What happened?
Yeah, so I sat down and fell on my ass, and in the process broke the propeller.
Right.
And And I just sat there shamefully. And I'm like Tom, I was really upset at myself. And I mean, we spoke on the phone that night. I was just, I could really relate to you saying how pissed you were at yourself.
Is that because Anthony was inadequate at making you feel all right, and so you had to come to me?
I couldn't get her there. Tom.
She went behind my back.
Make me feel better about this, Tom.
Anthony couldn't help me. First thing I do as a loving, caring boyfriend, I go sprinting up and I'm like, "Tell us how you feel, Leandra," with the camera right in her face.
I know.
Did you punch?
I mean, I was.
She was not feeling
cocked
it.
and loaded.
That would have been a worthy
I'm gonna
punch.
have to see that video because I thought your phone died.
Oh no, that really did happen.
Yeah.
Thank God. Oh my gosh.
Right.
You know what? It was definitely meant to be. I'm so glad. And I told him that's why in my first flight, the actual flight that successfully happens, that's why you only catch me. It starts with me in the air. Because I told him, I was like, do not go live right now. I just think it's so much pressure, especially since I have a failed attempt under my belt. And then
what happens? What happens when the camera does go on?
And then I crash landed and turtled.
But with that very first run up and run off, I mean, you're going through the process of driving out there, setting up, clipping in. What are you feeling during all that time, knowing you've never done this before?
I'm super excited, honestly. And I was
heart pounding?
I was nervous. I think my heart started pounding as I was, pulling the throttle a little bit. But Anthony, on our way, like he mentioned, we did have a conversation and he was very nervous for me.
I was freaking horrified, honestly.
Why would you tell her that, though?
He didn't. He was being,
good.
no. He was treading super lightly, being sweet and supportive. But like, I know.
I puked like 3 times on that
drive. But yeah, I know that he was nervous because he kept on saying, like, trying to, in a very careful way, like, let me know that I could get really nervous up there and I may feel different about it once I'm up there because I wasn't entirely nervous. I mean, I was nervous, but I wasn't like in my head overanalyzing anything.
Right. Yeah, because you were like pretty optimistic, borderline numb. Like,
I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go do this.
I'm gonna do it. And I was like, okay, but you may get really nervous once you're up there. And it's like one of these like, oh, God, just know it could come. And if you're completely blindsided from it, that's where I think that training is like important.
Yeah.
Is because,
So how confident did you feel going into the first flight attempt?
I felt really confident. Truthfully, I did.
Oh,
the first attempt.
Yeah, just
keyword.
So no external pressures made you go forward?
I'm not going to lie. I mean, I was nervous, but I wasn't.
But you feel like the training you had.
No, I felt confident.
Got you to that point.
For sure. And I felt really, really comfortable knowing that I had Ron in my ear. Shout out to Ron at Lone Star Paramotor.
Hell yeah.
You're my boy, Ron. Or is that Ronnie?
No,
how many Rons we got on the show? No, you know what? Side note.
Actually, there's 3 Rons.
Ron actually.
There's the other Ron.
Yeah, Ron
Turan actually helped me out. Like a few days before you guys got there, he was in Florida at Aviator, and I needed a starter, and I was talking to him, and boom, he got me a starter, sent it out, got it in like 2 days. So thanks, Ron.
Ooh, good.
Appreciate you.
I don't know if you finished your thought. Probably not.
It's probably gone, but go ahead.
It's gone. That's what I also think. Like when it comes, it's not just like go and get training. It's like find somebody specific, like do the research, make sure that you're getting an instructor who you can count on. And me, I also trained with Ron, hence why we went to Ron. Also, like with Ron, even though I've completed training, Ron is not only the type of person who I can call at any time, he's the type of person who calls me to see how I'm doing. Like, hey, how's the flying going? Is it blah, 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 blah? Do you have any questions about the flying? And he's somebody that genuinely cares about getting somebody into the air and feeling comfortable. And I think it's important that any individual looking to find training doesn't just go to some crazy ass dude who's, just back on the block like, hey, I can teach you paramotoring if you like. But somebody who knows what they're doing. Do a little check. Ask people who've trained with them before and just do the homework.
And plus, these people that have schools and that train, they can really help you sort out your gear needs too. I mean, that's a big thing is they can tell you what's safe for you, what the right size wings are for you, what the good motor is for you. And they probably have stuff that you can try. And so there you can get a variety of experience while you're there.
Yeah.
Hey, so who was that? Who was doing the live video?
That was Parker.
Parker?
Yeah, he
Dude's
would not
awesome, man.
lose the opportunity of documenting the turtle.
Great footage, Parker. Up for an Emmy.
It's so cool because like Ron and Parker, they're two totally different personalities. It's like, Ron is super zen-like and Parker is a little more in your face during the training, but for some people that totally vibes well. I think it's good to have, something to balance out.
Good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, kind of.
Yin and yang.
Yeah, it's a happy medium with those two.
Yeah, for sure. He's a super helpful guy too. Ron and Parker both make a great training program out there at Lone Star Paramotor.
In fact, I know that when I spoke to Parker, he mentioned that they're getting a tandem setup.
Oh, yeah. And they do have a towing setup as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think because of the way that the weather conditions were while we were there, it didn't really
Wasn't
facilitate
ideal.
for sure. But yeah, no, it's a neat setup that they have there. Make sure you check out Lone Star Paramotor if you're in the Austin area or if you just want to check them out.
Yeah, I would say clicking with your instructor is key. So I did training in Corpus Christi with Kyle Matula, and that's Power to Fly USA. I was initially just going to meet up with him. I'd been friends with him on Facebook, and I was going to be in that area, and I asked him if I could accidentally fall out of his trike paraglider, and he said, "Yeah, you take you up for a tour, and you can accidentally fall out." And so then it got me thinking how much, I was wondering how much training I could get done in a couple days. And with my skydiving background, he said, "Yeah, I bet we could get you, quite a bit of training. Let's do it." Right. So I met with him, did some kiting on the beach. It was great. That laminar air. And then after about a day of kiting, and I'd done kiting previously, kited with the motor, we practiced launches, but just being there at the beach, if it was too windy, we're just chilling on the beach under a shade tent, talking about paramotoring and going through the other parts of, PPG 1 and 2 and learning about the motor and all the different things, and just, a super chill atmosphere. So learning how to fly, clicking with the instructor, and then, got flying in like 2 days. So it was a cool environment, but
right.
You got to click with the instructor. So,
well, for me, I trained here in El Paso with Hadley Robinson, and he, by the way, was Instructor of the Year last year by USHPA magazine, and he trains by towing basically. So you're kind of free flight. You're in a harness and you're being towed across the sod farms, and you can get up to 1,000 feet on a good day, and on a poor day, you're at least 700 feet off the ground every tow. And he really took a lot of time with me and a friend, and so I didn't have to go up with a motor on my back the first time. I think that's a huge advantage. So like if you can tandem, I think that helps, and towing without the weight of the motor and the noise and all that kind of stuff. I think all that is advantageous. Now before seeking up with him, me and my buddy got a wing together, and we tried with absolutely not watching anything or nothing, trying to kite that sumbitch. And that was like when my wife first started telling me, you need to quit doing this before you even start, because I was so pissed I couldn't keep the wing up. But then, once someone tells you what you're doing wrong and you can see it, it helps. But anyway, it was really helpful being towed so many times and getting that air time and getting that experience and getting comfortable with how you're turning the wing and not even having to worry about the motor. And then a little bit later, started towing me with the motor, not even on, just a motor on my back, just so I get the experience of what it feels like taking off with a motor, running with a motor, landing with a motor. And then one time he took me up, and then I was up. He said, "Start it." So I was up in the sky.
You started it after you were in the air.
Yeah. Started it in the air,
cool.
And he said, "Okay, now you're going to land yourself."
Nice.
With the motor.
That's actually some pretty good logic.
It was a really nice progression, and of course, I'm biased. That's what worked for me. That's what I did. I think it's probably utopia for learning how to paramotor.
I think one of the other great things for an individual learning how to fly would be doing tandem flights, because I think there's a lot of confidence that can be built just by having somebody else in control and experiencing that kind of perspective while you're flying. And maybe, I I know not a lot of flight schools do it, but I do think that that's an awesome way to get somebody familiarized with just paramotoring in general. And I think it can help reduce that fear once somebody finds them up there by themselves, because you're not like getting that first time experience all by yourself, you know.
Yeah.
Moving forward into where we go from here, as mentioned, I think it's really important that we do find like the ideal conditions, because this episode is learning to fly. You've had your first flight, but I think all of us in this room like really would love to have you fly with us. And what are the steps that we can do to help once training is complete so that she, or anybody for that matter, can continue to learn after their initial training?
YouTube.
Well, actually the flying part of paramotoring is the easy part, right? Once you're up and you're just up there, it's just you and your mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's really not a whole lot to it. You're dealing with whatever unsettles you, if it's bumpy, or you're just enjoying a really smooth butter flight. And so that's the easy part. The hard part is the taking off and the landing. That's where it's the most dangerous. That's where you're most likely to break something, including yourself. And so really what you should be doing is you should be taking a lot of short flights, getting yourself in the right conditions, in the right place with no hazards, a lot less distractions. And you go up and you do a loop. You circle around and come back down and land. And you do that 5 times every time you go out and fly. Mm-hmm. And that's part of building confidence.
And building that confidence. I was talking to some of my colleagues today, and they were like, I saw that video. And I was like, did you see the end? and I was telling them, they were like, so have you flown again? Are you gonna? And I was like, yeah. I was like, most definitely going to. But I definitely see myself just going up and coming down quite a bit. Just to
work on timing,
basically. And get comfortable with
and
that.
Feel when you're taking off. It's a lot about feel. It's hard to look up and see the wing, but you can at the peripheries, left and right. You can see the wingtips. But a lot of it is what does it feel like on your shoulders as it's being brought up and tugging. And you should get to the point, and you do this when you're ground handling. You practice running with the motor, but you have it turned off, and you just practice raising the wing behind you over and over again. Yeah. And you get to the point where you can feel if it's coming up straight or left or right, and you correct it without ever looking up.
Yeah, you feel it. Yeah,
just
for sure.
by the feeling. Yeah.
And when you get to that point, you understand how the wing works, and you know how to control it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then that translates into the sky.
Exactly. I did that when I got home. So when I got home, I didn't have my motor yet, and I didn't have my actual paramotor wing. I did have like a hike and fly wing. And what I did was I went to the field and I just practiced forward launches. I was sweating just because it was the middle of summer, but additionally, I did it just over and over and over and reset the wing. And I think for me, I am a little bit, I'm very confident, borderline cocky when it comes to it. But I think I've worked my ass off in doing that. I don't know. I've probably practiced hundreds of forward launches before I got my actual paramotor set up. So that way, when I got my paramotor, every launch, I haven't failed a launch. I failed one launch, okay? But I really haven't, I have this success because I practice and practice and practice. And I think somebody who really wants to chase that amazing experience of flight needs to get out there and just practice the most challenging parts of paramotoring, which is taking off and landing. Taking off is a hell of a lot easier to practice than landing is, because you can run through the motions without getting off the ground. Yep. Additionally, we had discussed, Leandro and I had discussed on the drive back from Austin, what to do from here. And my thoughts on it was, if we went out to the sod farms and in her mind, she knew exactly what steps she was going to take during that flight, then it would be less guesswork. There would be less room for hypotheticals and scenarios that could eventually lead to fear starting to build. And I think for us, going to the sod farms would be absolutely fantastic, because if we develop a flight plan, right? If you have a flight plan and you're following step by step by step, boom, I'm going to take off. I'm going to follow the perimeter of this sod farm, and then I'm going to bring it in for a landing. And if you just did that repeatedly, let's say you're going to start it, you're going to go around in that circle, you're going to come down, you're going to land, and before landing, you're telling yourself, when I get to 5 feet, like you said, I'm going to start to flare, and I'm going to progress and then hold it off as long as I can and keep pushing down until you're down at your waist, and you know, bring it in for a nice, gentle landing.
You know, when I found out that I realized I understood the wing and I could control it real well, is my wife was with me one day when I was taking off. And I was doing a forward. I like to do forward. At least I like to do reverses, but you can't always do them. When the winds are light, you do a forward. Mm-hmm. So I was doing a forward launch, and I brought the wing up, and I didn't know it at the time, but without even looking up, without doing anything, I shifted hard to the right after I brought it up and kept running. And I kept that wing perfectly over me, and it never undulated or pendulum or swung or nothing. And I didn't know I did that. I had no idea I did it. And so that night I was watching the video that my wife had taken, and I saw that I did that, and I went, oh my God, I can't believe I did that without knowing and thinking. So it meant I felt it, and I understood it. So when you get to that point, you got it, and
That's
you'll
when
get
you know
there.
You've made it.
Yeah, and you'll get there. It just takes repeated times of doing it. And so like Anthony just said, you don't have to start the motor. You don't have to take off. You just have to go through the motion of getting the wing off the ground and running it to where it's steady, and then you get to that point where you would, you know, hit the throttle and start running to take off. But at that point, then you just let the wing fall, reset it, do it again.
Yeah. Learning to fly, there's a lot of similarities with learning to fly and learning to drive, right? Even though flying, we would say, has more consequences probably. Really, when you drive a car for the first time, it feels like there's a lot going on. Like if you go out to the modern day world, especially if you're like growing up in the city and there's all these signs and the lights and all these vehicles around you, you got a steering wheel, accelerator pedal, brake pedal, turn signals. You know, I guarantee that for the most people who've learned how to drive, there are things where you have to be reminded during that learning process on, don't forget to use, I mean, God dang, learning to drive with my mom was a nightmare because she just always would be barking in my ear about, use your turn signal. And I'd be like, oh yeah, I forgot to do that.
And you still don't use your turn signal.
Or seatbelts.
Or
I use seatbelts. Officially on the podcast, I wear seatbelts. But...
No, but I understand that, and I hadn't thought of it in that way. Yeah, the first time that I started driving, it was kind of overwhelming because there's a lot going on. But now, sometimes I'm driving and I get to where I'm going, and I'm like, when did I get here?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It just feels so like it's an extension of your body. Like you drive like it is walking with your own legs. I mentioned on one of my episodes of the YouTube channel about how flying could be considered, is considered a sport. And that being said, when you get done with training, I think it's really important to not expect to just like go out and fulfill that initial dream that you had as far as flying goes. It's not like, boom, I got done with training. Now I'm going to go and fly across the Andes and just enjoy this awesome trip. No, it's like still baby steps. You are still fresh to this sport. You should still take steps in doing it. And you should still dedicate entire days of flying just to getting closer to perfecting these important aspects of flying, like the landings and the takeoffs, or coming out of a turn. Think about other flight schools. If you're learning to fly a fixed wing aircraft, that flight instructor is going to have you do things like turn around a point, right? And then come out of it straight and level. That's something you practice in actual flight school. But when you come home, you should have that like perfected. A lot of the times, especially on a glider, as you come out of a turn, there's that buildup of speed and energy. And then as you exit that turn, you're going to balloon up. Same thing happens in a plane. But as a beginner stage, you shouldn't just like go out to the field and say, I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to go and fly this way and cut through this valley. No, go find yourself like an intersection or something on a seldom used road and just make circles around it. Or find like a piece of grass and challenge yourself to spot land or do these things. Challenge yourself. Treat it as a sport. Become the master of this craft.
No, I would agree, because a lot of times when I fly, I got into the habit of just flying, not having a plan, not having a a destination I wanted to go. And then I was like, well, man, I could, this is going to get old just flying around over the desert. So then I was like, okay, I want to have a plan. So this coming flight, I want to go here, here, and here, but also to work on things like you said. I mean, there's so many things you could work on with the wing, trimmer setting, tip steering, this and that, but then, maneuvers as well, so you're always,
yeah, for some reason, I went a long time without pulling big ears. I don't know why. And then I was like, oh, crap, I better start doing that again. So I got my last 4 or 5 flights. I just, right in the middle of the flight, I go, okay, I'm pulling big ears. And I'll just fly for like 10 minutes with big ears just for fun.
yeah.
And I'll let them pop out, then I'll grab them and pull them again.
It's crazy. Like some of the things that I've recently learned that you probably don't want to mess with is you just complete your own training. But one of the things that I've personally been practicing is like pulling some brake. You wouldn't want to pulling some brake just before landing to build up that energy so that I have flare. It was such a confusing thing to me even after training on how the hell do I touch down gently or foot drag it out. Because I kept finding that as I was approaching the field, I'd come in just diagonally, and then I would keep my hands up just like the instructor said, which is a safe method to do. You come in, you've got your hands up, and as you come down, you bring them down to your shoulders, and then you continue the pull as you burn out all of that energy to have the softest touchdown possible. What I'm doing now is I'm starting to pull some brake up above to slow the wing down, release it quickly, and then pitch down, and then I'm building this energy. But of course, as a beginner, straight out of training, you're not going to want to encourage somebody to start pulling the brakes higher up, both brakes simultaneously, because the only time you do that is when you flare, right? That's what they teach you out of during training is don't pull both while you're coming into land.
Is that right, Leandra?
Wait. Is that a trick question, Clint?
How do you land?
How do you land?
Well, I can show you how not to land.
So when you how not to landed, what did you do wrong?
I waited too long to flare. Yeah, and I definitely felt it as I was coming down. I recognized that I was coming in way too hot. Like I knew it. I was like, something bad's about to happen. And it's like, all right, let's do this. Let's get it over with.
I saw I like watched that video multiple times today. Just in the video. Like
Thank you, baby.
Yeah, of course. Your hands didn't move like
That's
an
my
inch.
girl.
Your hands were like up, all the way into the ground. But your feet kicked out like at the last second, like you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
I'm not breaking my ankles.
Yeah, that's when I knew.
Yeah.
So, before you go out, like Anthony was saying, we're going to find you the great day, a good place. And then one of us or two of us or all of us will go up and fly. And we'll sniff the air. They call them wind dummies.
Right.
We'll sniff the air and we'll go, man, that's some smooth, nice glass air. You're not going to get nervous in there. It's just going to be beautiful once you're up. And then you'll take to doing your takeoffs and landings.
For sure.
But before then, you're going to be doing practice runoffs with the wing. You're going to do forwards, and I think that's what you should be doing anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Just so that every time you pull on the wing and you start running, you get that thing perfectly stable, and you know that's perfectly stable, and then you go, okay, now I would throttle, but let it drop, and then do it again, and do it again.
Yeah, I think that's key. I think even after this week, being able to have the time I did kiting or practicing the launches and stuff, I completely believe I need a hell of a lot more practice doing it.
Then something else is we need some comms with you so that we can be talking to you while you're doing this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, I don't mean to jump around, but when you mentioned having like a flight plan of what you're doing, I think that's a really important piece of any of your first couple of flights. For a while, I was just like, where am I going? What's the plan? And
I think the instructor had told you, like, turn 90 degrees, and you kind of, like, decided to take the reins yourself because you're like, I'm not flying over the ocean.
Yeah, I was like, nope. Yeah, in fact, Ron's so sweet. He wanted me to get comfortable with just shifting turning by just shifting my
shift.
weight. Yeah. Ron encouraged me to just practice weight shift. And I was like, nope, not stowing those brakes. Because I honestly...
You don't have to stow the brakes to weight shift. Just don't pull.
Yeah, but that's what he was suggesting, just so that I could truly...
know that's what was turning you.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, there's absolutely no way.
So you feel like all your control is in having those brakes in your hand, right?
I think it's just a security thing. I feel like if I don't have my hands on something, I don't know what to do with my hands. You know.
She still feels that way even when she's not flying.
That's when you text.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know, right? He's trying to teach you.
Or
the
you go
texting
Facebook
practice.
Live, or
Right?
that. Pull an Anthony Vella.
Yeah, that's when you go
Don't start
FB.
that.
So how long was your first flight?
Oh God, I don't even know.
I don't know. I could go back to the footage, but it was probably like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh,
It wasn't very
That's good.
okay.
It was
Oh,
good.
that's a good
Familiarization.
first flight.
Like honestly, she did super good when she was in the air. Like I was nervous at first, but when I saw her up there, it really looked natural. Like her turns were rock solid.
Smooth.
The landing.
Jesus.
Jesus. You said, Jesus, take the wheel. And he goes, nope, it's all you.
And it was way too late for me to
You
make
asked him
any
a
impact.
little late, right?
Let's say your new Maverick gets here this week.
Yeah.
Do you think that if we had time this weekend and
Most definitely.
Yeah? Cool.
Yeah.
I didn't even have to finish the question.
Yeah.
Right on.
No, yeah.
Yeah, she want to sell it.
He was going to say, do you think Clint could try it out?
You were hating on orange, so
Is
I'm
it
not
orange?
really sure.
Yeah,
Is it orange?
Yeah, we
Yes,
got
it
it custom.
is.
Fuck that. It reminds me of Halloween, man.
Such a hater.
You're in the
Scares
pink,
me.
right? You're pink.
I prefer
Yeah,
pink.
pink
Yeah,
or
for
purple.
sure.
Orange is definitely
Polka
a better
dots.
color.
Yeah.
If there was a polka dot option, I would have definitely gone with that.
We still need to get Leandra a wing, though. So we've got the motor picked out. Realistically, from this moment, it's like it's only a matter of days before we decide on whether she gets a Ozone Spider, a Dudek Universal, or a Ozone Mojo. Please shoot us a message. Let us know at facebook.com/the Paramotor Podcast. Drop us a message on what you think. Thank you all so much for listening to the 10th episode of the Paramotor Podcast. We're all in disbelief here that we made it this far. So go ahead and show us some support if you don't mind by going over to www.facebook.com/the Paramotor Podcast and hit that like button. Let us know your thoughts. Did you like the show? Do you like what we're doing? Do you have ideas for future episodes? Major thank you to all of the patrons who are helping us make this a reality. Big thanks to you guys. Stay tuned for the next one. We got some exciting stuff coming up. We have some amazing guest speakers in the upcoming episodes. So until next time, thank you all for listening and good night. Good morning.
Good night.
Monday.
We're out.